Have you ever felt like you were missing some really crucial signals when you were talking to people in your professional life?
Oh, yeah.
Well, like, you know how sometimes you walk out of a meeting and you're like, I don't know, something felt a little bit off,
Absolutely. Yep.
but you just can't put your finger on it.
Right.
Well, today, on our deep dive, we're going to try to equip you with some pretty serious people reading skills so that doesn't happen.
Okay, I like it.
We're going to be diving into the world of nonverbal communication.
Cool.
Specifically, we're going to look at how techniques from Humint, that's human intelligence, could be applied to executive search and board advising.
Interesting.
So we're talking about high stakes, complex situations, and yeah, maybe a little bit of spycraft.
I like it.
We're going to be unpacking some really cool insights from an expert who's actually made that leap from Humint to executive recruitment.
Wow.
Marc Imperiali. So get ready to learn how to decode those subtle cues that reveal what's really going on beneath the surface. Because the goal here is to help you avoid hiring the wrong person or putting the wrong person on a board.
All right. It's a pretty high-stakes situation.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge stakes. So, you know, we're talking about Humint. It's all about understanding Hume systems, right?
Yeah, it's really about going beyond what's explicitly said, what's on the surface. We're really looking for what I like to call the potential earthquakes.
Oh, the earthquakes?
Yeah.
I like
The challenges, the conflicts.
the things that could erupt and really cause some problems.
Exactly.
So I love that analogy of the earthquakes. How does this approach of kind of looking for the potential earthquakes, how does that actually help us to avoid those seismic activities in the business world?
Yeah, so imagine you're interviewing a candidate for a really important job, and this person is seemingly perfect.
Right.
They're eloquent, they're confident, they're ticking all the boxes, they have the right background, the right experience,
Perfect resume.
but their leg is bouncing nervously under the table.
Ah.
Or maybe a fleeting micro-expression, we'll talk about that later, of fear flashes across their face when you mention tight deadlines or a really demanding boss.
I see, okay.
These subtle inconsistencies could reveal a mismatch with the company culture or the demands of the role.
So, okay. So it's not about becoming a mind reader.
Right.
It's about adding another layer of understanding, another kind of tool in your tool belt, if you will,
Exactly.
to help you understand the person that you're talking to.
That's right.
So let's break down some specific cues that Marc Imperiali highlights in his work.
Okay, great.
And he starts with body language, which we all know is super important.
Sure.
What can we actually glean from, let's say, a firm handshake or crossed arms or if someone's leaning back in their chair?
Yeah, those are all classic body language cues for a reason. I mean, a firm handshake, we all know, can project confidence. While crossed arms, as you mentioned, might suggest that someone's defensive or they're not open to what you're saying.
Not receptive to your ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And leaning back could signal disinterest, right? Or maybe they just ate a big lunch and they're uncomfortable.
So true, yeah.
That's why context is key. We have to always look at the entire situation, the cluster of behaviors.
That's a great point, right? We can't just jump to a conclusion based on one gesture.
Right, exactly.
It's about looking at the whole picture, which,
Yeah.
again, makes this very challenging.
Sure.
But what about facial expressions?
Oh, yeah.
Because you mentioned micro-expressions.
Yes.
Which is a term I'm sure a lot of our listeners have heard about,
Right,
but maybe they don't fully understand.
right.
So what are micro-expressions and what can they tell us?
Micro-expressions are fascinating because they're these very quick, often involuntary facial expressions
Right.
that can reveal a person's true emotions, even if they're trying to conceal them.
Oh, wow.
So, they contradict what someone is saying.
So they could be saying one thing,
Yes,
but their face is betraying them.
exactly. And they happen so fast.
Mm-hmm.
They're very difficult to detect, but with practice, we can learn to spot them. Let's say a candidate insists they thrive under pressure, right?
Okay.
But a micro expression of anxiety, maybe a furrowed brow or a tightening of the lips, betrays them when you describe a high-stakes project.
Oh, interesting.
Right, that inconsistency, that's a red flag. It's telling us, okay, maybe this person isn't as comfortable with pressure as they claim to be.
Right.
It's giving us more information.
Yeah, so we're not just looking at the words people are saying, we're looking at their face.
Exactly.
We're looking at their body language.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you mentioned and that Marc Imperiali emphasizes is voice tone.
Oh, absolutely.
So how can voice tone give us those extra clues, those extra signals about what someone's really thinking or feeling?
Well, think about it. A confident voice, clear and steady, can be incredibly persuasive. But a hesitant or wavering tone, on the other hand, might reveal insecurity or doubt. Think about a candidate who claims to be a strong leader,
Okay.
but their voice cracks when they're describing a difficult decision that they had to make.
Interesting.
Or maybe they start speaking really quickly or they get flustered.
Right. And then they're not as comfortable as they seem.
Exactly.
It's by really listening to how things are said, not just the words themselves.
Exactly.
We're adding all these layers, these extra layers of meaning.
Right, right.
And I know that Marc Imperiali also briefly mentioned some other cues, like eye contact, right?
Yes.
Because eye contact can be so powerful.
Absolutely.
And personal space, which again makes me think about all those things, all those little things that we have to adjust to after COVID.
Right. Yes.
But he also talks about something called thought mapping, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So what is thought mapping?
Thought mapping is fascinating. It's a technique that's used to visualize and analyze someone's thought process. So it's not just about looking at one cue in isolation. It's about connecting the dots between their verbal and nonverbal cues to create a more complete picture.
So you're putting it all together like a puzzle.
Exactly.
Wow. That's really interesting. So there's so many to unpack here, but for our listener who maybe is like, okay, I'm interested, I want to get better at this, where would you suggest they start applying these insights?
Just start by observing. Really pay attention to the people that you interact with every day, their body language, their facial expressions, their voice tones, and just watch and listen without judgment.
Right.
Do their nonverbals align with their words? Do you notice any inconsistencies? And it's really a skill that you can develop over time.
Right.
Just like learning a new language.
So the more we practice,
Yes.
the more we observe,
Exactly.
the better we become at reading these subtle signs.
Absolutely.
So the big takeaway here is that nonverbal communication is a really powerful tool.
Absolutely.
And we often overlook it. By becoming more attuned to these nonverbal cues, we can gain deeper insights into the people that we interact with every day, professionally and personally.
Yeah, it's amazing how much information is out there if we just know how to look for it.
And we can avoid those potential earthquakes, right?
Exactly.
We can make more informed decisions, whether it's in hiring or negotiations or even in our personal relationships.
Yeah, because let's be honest, we're always assessing people, even if we're not doing it consciously.
That's so true, right?
And these skills just help us be more aware and more intentional.
So I just want to remind our listeners that if you want to explore this fascinating world further, I highly recommend checking out Marc Imperiali's book.
It's a great book.
It's a goldmine of insights on how to read people, and we'll be sure to put a link in the show notes. So until next time, happy observing, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.